Welcome to Footprints in the Market. Today we are joined by Brandie Black, who is a legend within the iGaming space. So I'm really delighted that we've managed to kind of reconnect over this podcast. And I think the topic of conversation is one that's not really been covered before. Obviously, we're kind of going to run through like SEO and the age of AI, but I think this ESG piece and how that can shape the iGaming industry is something that we've never had any guests talk about before. So, Brandy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharon, and I really appreciate the nice words and right back at you.
Well, I think most people who'll be listening to this will know who you are, but I thought it would be good just to kind of like kick off with your journey within the space and share what brought you into the iGaming industry and what excites you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to keep it relatively short. Anyone who knows me, I can speak quite a lot, but and go on a tangent. But I will try to refrain. But yeah, so I've been in the gaming space. I always say 15 years, but I feel like I've been saying that for like the last 2 years. So let's say 15 plus years. So from the start, I actually started off as an affiliate. I started that quite young, and I originally started doing affiliation in niche products, so nothing to do with iGaming. Basically, I got invited to an IGB affiliate conference in Budapest by a business friend of mine in Canada, where I was living at the time. Yeah, it was unreal. It was a great conference. I was 19 at the time, I think. And anyway, I made so many good contacts. The industry was just and like out of this world, and that's coming from for me. I always thought like gambling, like I've never gambled, I've never really been around it at that age, at least. So anyway, it was quite interesting, just the energy and the personalities. So basically I shifted over slowly into doing iGaming affiliation, and that's really going back quite some time. So those were really the Wild West days, especially with SEO. um that's where I started. Once I got more integrated into the industry, I started I was attending a lot of the conferences and, building my network and so on. And I just naturally kind of progressed into the content area because I always had a love for writing long before I got into business. It was always something I really enjoyed. And okay, maybe my joy in life is not writing about casinos, but we were able to do it in a good way, and I started building a team around that, and not to mention to support the affiliate projects. So slowly that transitioned into having a marketing agency, which is Brandie Media. So I still do that as well. So always our bread and butter was content, which of course inevitably involves SEO and digital PR. Fast forward, I've been basically doing that for the entirety of my career, although of course it's been a little different, let's say, over the last couple of years with AI, of course, as we know. Um, Here we are today. I'm still running the agency. However, also I've been working quite a lot on an NGO over the last 3 years, which is the ESG Gaming. So in a nutshell, that is my journey in the industry so far.
You're listening to Footprints in the Market, the marketing playbook for iGaming. Expect unfiltered insight from market leaders on their industry experience, real-life case studies, pitfalls to avoid, and actionable takeaways for practical growth of your brands. Footprints in the Market is brought to you by Digital Footprints, your strategic marketing partner and safest bet in iGaming. Interesting, because I think me and you've actually had quite similar like starts within it, and we've kind of like both grown from like that SEO and content side to kind of develop our own, marketing agencies. So I think that's really quite cool. Some synergy.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of like that SEO and that sort of like content space, obviously that's played a lot throughout your career. And how do you think that that's evolved within the last 15 years? What do you see like the biggest changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think about it like this, right? When I started, obviously you wanted to write good content. Who does? I don't know, if you just don't care about what you're doing, that's another thing. But for someone who does, as ourselves do, you always want to write good content. So that's something that never really changes. How that's done is another thing. But basically, I mean, back when I started, you know, SEO is pretty simple in a way. I mean, it's not to say it's totally Mm, completely simple. I don't know, but I mean, it was pretty basic. You know, you did your meta tags, you did your keywords, you know, like it wasn't really intent focused. It was just kind of logical based, which not to say it isn't now, but it was just pretty basic, I would say. Write good content, get the keywords in there. Yeah, okay, keyword stuffing was a thing back then because obviously Google wasn't so developed back then. And obviously with the backlinks as well, the more the better, absolutely not the case anymore. So I mean, yeah, it was really simple. And when I first started, like social media wasn't really a thing. I mean, social media was Facebook. You know, you didn't have Reddit, you didn't have Instagram, TikTok, all this stuff, YouTube. So I mean, so I picture it like that. There was just, you know, you have your website, you do your keyword research, you put out some good content, get some calls to action in there, so and so and so, basics, and that was it, right? And you hope to rank, and then you tweak your content and so on. Then came social media, which was not so long after, at least when I started, and that became obviously a big component to how Google measures content and so on. I mean, now we've been in that phase, Web 2, for a long time. Now we're moving into the Web 3, which is still very a murky space, but yeah, so from basic websites then to having a social media impact or some authority and trust. I mean, that comes a bit later. And you know, social media is a huge is a huge thing now. I mean, obviously very important for SEO. Yes, I mean, and now we're getting into the new world, I suppose, where you know, the rules have changed significantly, but for the better. You know, you can't just try to black hat your way into results, right? So yeah, now we're in the current landscape. I mean, I know we kind of spoke about this off the call, but also with SEO. I mean, SEO is still absolutely relevant. All those original rules still matter. It's just a bigger picture, right? So it's
So
just the landscape's bigger. Like social media, it was only Facebook, but now you have many, many, many social networks and bookmarking and so on. And now we get to AEO, answer engine optimization, generative engine optimization. I mean, I can't keep all these acronyms straight, you know, so that, I guess that's where we're at, right? At the moment.
100% agree with you. I always remember me kind of like first started, and I always say it's 15 years as well, but I always so like you feel like I say 15 for quite some time. So I don't know if I'm trying to like
Yeah.
age or what I'm trying to do, but
I love that we've had the same story as well. Like, it's really cool, actually.
it is. And I think I had the same experience. Like you would just like buy, it was like domains were also really important back then. Like if you had like a domain that had a keyword in it, and if you had just the content, and you would be fine, so it would be so much less competitive. But I think now I feel as if it's kind of like forced even us like from an agency and others to kind of like do our jobs a little bit better, because it needs to be better in order to compete. It's not just about like having a good domain, sticking some good content on it, and then automatically you'll rank. There's this whole brand piece around it, which it didn't really kind of used to be 15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought up the domains as well because I'm a serial domain hoarder. So yeah, I forgot about that one. But yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I still think there's relevance to that, to these keyword domains. Oh, absolutely. And then you have the branded, but that's kind of the next level. And when your brand becomes important or relevant enough for that to matter, that's another cornerstone of the topic, I suppose.
And I think I can't not ask it because everybody will be expecting it. But obviously, we now have AI. And how do you think that that's developed SEO in the last few years? And what do you feel about people's like approach towards it?
Yeah, I mean, AI, I mean, content-wise, I'm not a fan, but I guess I'm biased. But even if I wasn't biased, I would still have the same opinion. I mean, AI is great. It's really cool to see, as not just in the digital marketing world, but also in the industry, because our industry is quite specific in comparison to other more generic e-commerce, for example. So with AI, I think it's fabulous in many ways, especially with SEO in terms of tech audits, optimize it. Like it should be used more to make these processes easier and not take away the creative side, right? So, and that doesn't mean it can't help with content. Where AI might be most relevant or beneficial for SEO is, as I said, the tech audits and personalization. But this goes a little bit beyond just content. You know, I think it can make work processes more efficient. Market research and keyword research can obviously be done much faster with AI compared
Yeah.
to, you know, back in the day when we did our research on Ahrefs or whatever, or just on Google keyword tool, and you have your spreadsheet and all that. But which, I mean, nothing wrong with that. But of course, you can simplify all these tasks. So from that side, in terms of automation and just simplifying the actual human's life rather than throwing in a concept or throwing in a topic, letting it generate the, you know, and being done with it, which unfortunately does happen or is happening rather.
Yeah,
You know.
100%. I think probably what's potentially happened is I completely agree. I think in terms of like workflow automations and all that kind of stuff to make your life simpler, I think AI is amazing. But I do think that one of the problems that there is with it is, especially in like a YMYL niche like iGaming, like everything needs to be better, including content, because you know we're like looked at differently because we're in that space. So I think for people to be on like an affiliate site and not have content that is completely personalized, completely objective in itself is just like such a bad message to give off straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I mean, if you could sum up my opinion of the benefit at this current time of the world and the industry and the marketing industry as a whole, I mean, I guess AI, to put it simply, you can be more predictive with SEO planning, I would say. And that can be so much, and also with more advanced analytics as well. I mean, that simplifies a lot where you can focus your creative strategies more on retention, and that's a big topic in iGaming. Everyone wants acquisition, but actually, I mean, I've seen this quite a lot. They say, "No, we don't have an acquisition problem. We have a retention problem." I suppose we'll speak more about that later, but that's one thing that sticks out for iGaming, at least particularly, and finance as well, actually.
Do you see people still investing in like traditional SEO, or do you think that their focus is just completely shifting towards like AI generated strategies? How do you think they're behaving?
Yeah, that's a great one. I see a mix of both. I guess very much we're in a landscape of transition. Um, but that said, as I say, I see a mix of both. Some companies, I mean, even not even now, but let's say 2 years ago, they scrapped their content teams. And of course, running a content agency, as I'm sure you can relate, you felt that as well. They say, no, we don't need it. Save the money. We have ChatGPT do it. Yeah, okay, let's see how that works out. You know, that type of thing. So there was a lot of companies doing that. And then a lot of other companies were maybe a little bit more strategic with it, where they were kind of dipping their toes and experimenting with it, but not foregoing a traditional SEO strategy. I mean, my opinion overall on that is one doesn't replace the other, at least not now. I mean, I can't predict the future, but we can take an educated guess. But I really don't believe, I mean, SEO has always been, I remember hearing this since a long, long time ago in my career. And when I was learning SEO and I was very, like, again, 15 years ago, and said, no, Google thinks like a person. So
Yeah.
just think like that. And so that was said, and I really remember that was got to be 15 years ago. And that still applies now, right? And that's like the underlying purpose of SEO. It's just evolving in as technology evolves, which is inevitable. So yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I think some went one, but a lot of people are stepping back now and they're like, you know, our rankings are dropped, but that can be for so many reasons. That is really probably the biggest challenge in SEO overall, is understanding why rankings drop so and so, because there's so many A/B testings that you have to do, or you know, data analysis to do to really get that, because it can be so many things. It could be a technical issue. I mean, you have to really look into that overall. But I think now it's a bit of a balance. I think a lot of companies are realizing that maybe they do need a humanized touch to what they're doing. To me, that's just obvious. But I mean, I get it. If companies see an opportunity to save money and cut costs, I mean, I get it. All power to them. That's the point of business. But I suppose it's not really worked always, or it definitely has not worked in that way complete for anybody from my viewpoint. But
Yeah, definitely. I'm
yeah.
happy to share that even from our agency experience. Like we had that, like when it was, like in full flow and that, like, say a couple of years ago, and like we did have people like drop, like reducing their content orders, and it was because of AI, and it was, and they would say that, but what we are finding is that the rankings are dropping, and then they're having to come back and get us to create the content again. So there is definitely a link, and I do think that people are, you know, once they see their rankings drop and they've got that data to say, actually, do you know what, maybe this wasn't the smartest move to completely replace the copywriters with that, and make more educated choices. Or maybe that's just me being overly optimistic. Nancy, what do you think?
No, I think I think you're right. I think yeah, I mean, it's funny, but I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy for us again, being biased. I mean, but yeah, I think that was kind of inevitable to happen. I mean, you can't, because I mean, let's go back 2 years. I mean, we didn't fully understand how I mean, at least not me. I mean, I think the general viewpoint, if an AI engineer would obviously have more insight, but for us marketers, I think yeah, we need to learn and adapt. But yeah, adapting too quickly without a strategy and without really thinking what I mean, the pros and cons, rather than only looking at the pros, which would be saving money, faster output. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously now, because that, I mean, I think you're going to ask me this anyway, but now we have this surplus of content, not just on website, like more so on social media than anything. And it's over the top, like these, yeah, anyway, I will let you continue.
What's the other big mistakes are you seeing people like make within SEO other than AI? Is there anything else that you're thinking you're seeing a trend from any of your like contacts, clients, or just research in general?
Yes, yes, of course, not to mention any brands whatsoever, and not just in gaming, but I mean, so okay, let's look at it like this, right? So SEO has many influential factors. So social media is one. So I want to focus on that one, because I remember, again, long ago, I was pitching social media to gaming companies. They're like, nah, we don't need that. It's irrelevant. Of course, that's completely, absolutely different story now. But because there's just so many, I mean, the internet is just massive, I mean, obviously, but and there's so many social media channel or platforms, sorry. There's so many different trends. There's this and that. So I see some brands, gaming and otherwise, they, you see a trend on TikTok. I don't know, one of these like dance trends. I mean, I'm too old for that, so I don't really. I see it. I don't see that as as a marketing. I mean, it's a marketing trend, but for what it is, I mean, whatever, for these memes and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to what I'm trying to say is, you see all these trends online, and maybe a business, maybe an iGaming business that's B2B, for example, and they want to involve their staff to do these trends, but then so they do it because it's hot at that moment, but it's completely off brand, and it doesn't really fit with their clientele. It doesn't really fit with their brand image or their brand qualities, or so on.
Yeah.
So companies or marketing departments, for example, the social media departments, are thinking, yeah, we can get a lot of interaction with this, but then does it not do more harm than good in some cases? I mean, sometimes it's brilliant and it works. It's a risk, but I mean, it's like people jumping on the AI train without really understanding it or fitting it into a strategy. It's like the same kind of thing. If this answers your question, you see, like people are looking for this because obviously all these social interactions are relevant to the brand rankings and so on. And if you're just getting engagement for the sake of it, for some funny video, but it makes no difference, I mean, it's probably not going to get you new clients. And you might even, I mean, hopefully not, but some brands might even lose clients. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of this kind of activity going on. I mean, it can be a hit or miss. You never know,
Yeah.
right?
I think you're right, and I think even some of the like the bigger brands out there, I think that it is just that lack of like knowledge, you know, on each channel and what that should be like. And I think sometimes it's often maybe like delegated to people who are just like, oh, I've seen this on TikTok, and let's just do
Yeah,
that, and it doesn't have that overall like holistic view of what the brand voice is, what that tone is, and how that will impact at all.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like TikTok, I have TikTok, but it's more for my sustainability and gardening and stuff like that, which I still try to put through on my personal brand on LinkedIn or my personal professional brand, which for me as an entrepreneur, as you would agree, is one and the same. So I mean, let's go back 3 years and just use TikTok because I think it's a great example. I mean, I was like, I'm never getting that. Like that's just like weird. And I mean, I don't know, I don't know. And that, like a couple years ago, right? But I mean, but that said, obviously that's very different now. I mean, B2B on TikTok is actually getting pretty massive, and I think it will only continue to get bigger. And I'll go back to that in a moment. I think that it can be done, but it's like, but the point is not what my example was before. It's not to say don't do it, but don't jump on every trend just because it's engaging for XYZ reasons or for this. Yeah. Or you could, but you have to be very clever in how you spin it so it still resonates with your audience. I mean, the B2B example is just a good one because you wouldn't, like a couple years ago, you wouldn't think to have that social credibility on TikTok for B2B brands or anything remotely business, whereas now it's changing, but there's a way of doing it and so on. I think the biggest thing is just not to jump on every trend that comes just because it's popular at the moment. And that is something I see a lot, and sometimes it definitely works out. So you need to take a calculated risk, but it has to be calculated, not just throwing up a video because you saw that your daughter liked it, or what, I don't know,
exactly. No,
something.
exactly. I think you're right. I think that there's so many trends out there that it's so easy just to jump on it. It can be just like the quick thing to do as well, and often the fun thing to do, to be fair for people. But that doesn't mean that it's good content or it's content that fits in with what you're trying to do. It might fit more in with your, just your own personal TikTok or whatever you're trying to do. And I think that's
Right.
the thing. I think people like they can post what they like or what they think is cool or what they think's fun, but then forget about the user and that brand that they've built. And I think TikTok is a perfect example of that because what they need to remember as well is what shows up on like their For You page is their algorithm. It's very specific to them. It's not specific to the demographic that they're always kind of trying to target.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Footprints in the Market is sponsored by BetComply because in iGaming, compliance isn't just a tick box exercise. From new market entry to ever-changing regulations, BetComply keeps you one step ahead. Don't risk it, own it. Head to betcomply.com and take control of your compliance today. In terms of mistakes, Randy, one that I've seen is when we've had affiliates that are looking to target new geos and
Uh-huh.
they've maybe been shortcutting in terms of the content and localization within that. I think maybe like trying to bite off a little bit more than they can chew and then just saying, look, you know what, we'll just target everybody. We'll just have, plugins that will just translate the content and then it just not turning out so well and then kind of having to come back and say, oh, actually, what we need to do is really, really localize that. What's been your thoughts? How critical do you think that localization is to SEO strategy when you are trying to enter in these new markets?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I mean, especially with affiliates, because of course, I mean, when you're a big casino operator brand, I mean, it's just bigger departments that you have to work through to get strategies approved and so on in terms of entering a new market or a new geo, whereas affiliates can tend to be able to move a bit quicker on that. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, and that's just a typical fashion of affiliates, which I get it. Obviously, I've been there, done that. But I think if you don't, yeah, you just kind of throw it out there. I mean, that's not even the worst thing to do at the beginning, because that's the one way where you can kind of filter through your analytics and say, okay, this region is working, or maybe another country that you didn't think about. But then, yeah, as you say, biting off more than you can chew, and that's just not targeted enough. But I mean, with affiliates, right? I mean, you have to, especially nowadays, like your niche is in affiliate marketing, at least the niche is everything. So, and we see that more and more. You can't just be an Ask Gamblers or LCB or whoever. I mean, those days are over. So I think I mean, number one, you waste a lot of time not localizing. At least once you launch and you do a bit of an experimental phase, I don't think that's a bad thing in terms of where you're targeting. But just to give yourself some R&D, research and development phase, where then you can kind of trickle down to better scope out these sub niches, let's say. That's one part of it. And obviously you can miss a lot of traffic by not doing that. So that's probably the most important factor. Secondly, nowadays, I mean, we all know how it's going with regulation. It's always been a big topic, but this year more than ever for many reasons. We don't have to get into that, but I mean, you can't just go go crazy in unregulated waters, so to say. I mean, you can, but I'm not sure that's very smart at this point in time. But I mean, that's another thing, and that will, like, look what happened in the US a couple of years ago, quite some years ago now. I mean, you can't operate there. I mean, people do it, of course, but it's a risky operation, and if you're really trying to build a solid business, I think that's not the way to go. So, the first point is not localizing for traffic means you're obviously going to leave a lot on the table. Secondarily, if you're not doing it properly and following some form of marketing compliance and just how you run your business operations wise, that's another risk you take, massive. Maybe, I mean, obviously that is in some ways SEO related, because if you're getting penalized or you have bad PR from doing something wrong, that's not
Yeah.
really good. I think that's obvious.
Perfect. What I wanted to also touch on with you, Brandie, is I wanted to cover the SEO stuff and the content stuff, because people would definitely expect me to ask you questions on those. But I also am,
Yeah.
like, a massive advocate for ESG, and and how that can be part of marketing. Do you think, from your perspective, it's becoming like a bigger talking point within the iGaming space, and how can marketing strategies like reflect ESG principles? So this is something that I'm actually really interested in hearing, like, your opinion and learning something from you on this.
Yeah. I mean, that's a massive one, and that's a great follow-up question considering what we just discussed. So, I'll just tell you a little story on that. So, ESG, right? It's been around since the 1700s, not always under the name ESG, but this is a concept that's been around a long time. I know that because I'm a certified ESG advisor, which is more that is via my financial advisory group, which is the EFPA. It's the only European financial association that's a real association that's quite. Anyway, from that, so I learned a lot about ESG from there, and this is going back a couple of years now. I've always been quite big in finance on the side of iGaming, and yeah, with ESG, it's so funny because the first things we learn, and this was part of my financial advisory certification that I did some years ago, but we touch on ESG, of course, because it's very relevant. And they say, ESG, there's certain areas that are just anti-ESG: tobacco, alcohol, weapons, and gambling. So I thought, that's interesting. And then some years ago, shocker, that I bought some domains which were ESG and iGaming related, and thinking, this would be something someday. So So the last, what was it? The last Ice Barcelona. So the beginning of this year, I was soft pitching and kind of getting a feel for how people felt about ESG in the industry. There was definite interest, but a lot of people were like, ah, it's nothing. It's a phase. It's a fad. It doesn't matter. It's not important. That's obviously not the case, as especially again with all these hot regulation topics, black market topic. I mean, there's just so much going on outside of that. So how, I mean, for operators, there's so many things that they have to consider, especially the public companies and all of that. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I think brands just need to think differently. They need to incorporate ethical standards. I mean, of course, you can put gamble responsibly icon on the bottom of your website. Great. But I mean, what does that actually do?
Yeah.
Do you think anyone cares? No.
Yeah.
Like they don't, you know, it's just, it's the typical scenario, like with compliance, it's like ticking a checkbox, and obviously ESG from the governance side of things, that's one and one the same as compliance. I mean, that's the cornerstone, right? So where compliance, especially marketing compliance, has kind of been seen as like, oh, this is an annoying thing that we have to deal with. You know, now it's becoming more of an integrated part in all of the departments, whether it's marketing or otherwise. I mean, marketing's a massive web. You know, CRM, everything, acquisition, everything with that in the messaging. So, so to say that, I think, and also preparing for the new generation of people that will be online bettors or playing games or so on. I mean, which we are in that transition as well. And these brands, I mean, it's kind of ironic because you're like, oh, an ethical gambling brand, but like, which is kind of funny, and I get that, but why can't that exist? You know what I mean? Like, why can't this form of entertainment also have an ethical um spin to it, right?
Exactly. No,
Um
100%.
yeah.
How do you think, like, what do you think the key is to doing that, like, authentically? Because I think you're right. See, when you're talking about, like having, like, responsible gambling messages and safer gambling messages, I think that you're right in that some people can just see that as that, oh, they've ticked the box there.
Yeah.
So how do you think that they can do it differently? What creative things do you think they can do with ESG that makes people understand that actually who they are as a brand, and it's not just lip service, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great question. I mean, okay, so let's look at it like this, right? So from the first pillar, the most important is, okay, let's have a look at branding and marketing material. How does our brand portray that we actually care about player protection, that we actually care about responsible gambling? So that's where you have to start. I mean, yeah, okay, so which I guess I mean, naturally speaking, it would be your website first. Of course, yes, have those warnings as have existed since ever. But how do we take that a step further authentically? Of course, you got to incorporate that into your content first of all. But even before that, branding wise, like what's our brand story?
Yeah.
Do we have to maybe adapt that a bit for modern times and modern realities in terms of how we are building the business as well. It's not just marketing, but it's like we need to build that. So, but of course, those kinds of things start with the marketing, because that's you can internally say you care about people and you're doing this and that, but like if you're not communicating that, then it's not really it's I mean, what, it's not worth anything really. I mean, because it could just be all talk and lip service, as you say.
Yeah.
So starting from that, I mean, you really got to take a step back, clean the whiteboard, look at your brand story. First of all, look at your brand values. How can we tweak that to be more receptive to player protection, to the regulation of the jurisdictions you're working with? How easy, or if you even have these self-exclusion tools, how easy is it to get there? How much are you educating people that they exist, or are you just throwing them on a hidden page and a
Yeah.
sub page on your, you know what I mean? And so you got to take a step back. I mean, I'm not saying that the companies or operators should scrap their brand. Of course not. Just take a step back,
Yeah.
tweak it to be more receptive to the current realities and why this messaging is important, and then and also personalize it so that that's not really such a creative idea. That's just how it should be done. But then the creative part can come in where you can say, okay, I don't know, brand XYZ. I mean, I don't want to use any actual brands. I could, of course, but I'm not going to because I don't want to do that. But I would say, like, what makes your brand XYZ Casino unique? Whatever. I mean, okay, cool. That's a nice story. But then how can you incorporate these new realities into that story that reflect modern times and modern requirements? So that's a great way to start. And obviously, once you kind of establish that new branding, then you want to focus on your messaging and how you're communicating. I mean, AI is great for these chatbots. I mean, they're not always great, but I mean that's something that you could really use AI for, because that's a massive time saver. And that, by the way, are you having issues like with problem gambling? Look, we have this self-exclusion tool. You can use it and block your account for a month, and if you need help, we're here. So you got it. Like, that's one part where you have to funnel that into just the messaging to make people aware of it. I mean, posting blogs, posting on social media, of course, all this is relevant, but it shouldn't just be like bonus and this winner and everything's great and awesome and cool and this, that. I mean, let's be real, and let's face realities, and let's face the elephants in the room, right?
Footprints in the Market is brought to you by Digital Footprints, your strategic marketing partner and safest bet in iGaming. Make your mark and work with us to drive growth and innovation for your iGaming business. 1,000,000%. And I think you're right. It's all about that like future generation as well. And I think when there's so many like sports books out there's so many casinos out there, they're looking for that differentiator, and they are smart.
Yeah.
They research that brand, so they want to find out what they're about.
Sure.
And I think that those that will have that, bit above the others are those who are taking these kind of things into consideration. And I think you're 1,000,000% right. Look, just because it's a gambling brand, it doesn't mean that they can have ethical policies attached to it. They're saying it's a form of entertainment. They're not doing it for harmful, purposes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much more. So that's basically the square one, is to take a step back, reanalyze everything I just said. And then once once the company has a renewed framework that reflect these important factors, let's say, then you can focus more on PR strategy, branding strategy, marketing strategy in terms of getting the message out there, and actually, and not just saying you do these things, like actually doing them, in terms like what we're doing with ESG Gaming. We are a nonprofit, but we want to help these not just operators, game providers, any company in the iGaming under the iGaming umbrella is relevant to this, because we all need to be socially responsible, to put it really simply. So from once you've got this basis established and kind of reinvented, you can look more into, I mean, again, what with our for example, let's say Canada, right? Because Canada is quite a regulated market. Of course, that's a surprise to no one. I mean, Canadian players, we care. I'm Canadian, of course. We care about the environment. So maybe for every, I don't know, for every X dollar amount deposited, we donate, or we fund trees XYZ in British Columbia, because we have a lot of forest fires there. Obviously I'm just making ideas, but then you actually do it, and then you can use, like, you're not greenwashing, because that's a big issue, and that's been going on for the last decade. I mean, ESG, maybe it's only becoming a cool topic now, but it's always been there. And greenwashing, before it was called greenwashing, has been existing for a long time. People can't really get away with that anymore. So you can take it a step further with these strategic partnerships with charities, strategic partnerships with, and again, it all has to make sense for your brand mission and vision. Your target market obviously plays a massive role in that as well. I mean, there's so much you can do about it, and I know there's some gambling companies. Again, I'm not going to say, because it's not necessary, but I've heard this quite sometimes in various discussions, where some brands, they gave a lot of money to different charities, but they didn't want to talk about it. And why is that? Because they didn't want people to think they're greenwashing because they're a gambling company. And I totally get, like, this from the story I heard, this was quite some years ago. So maybe that is different now for that particular company. But like, I get it, because people are like, ah, yeah, they're just saying that, but do they do it, you know? But I mean, and with media these days, everyone has a phone, everyone has like a decent camera. You could send one of your marketing people there to really capture whatever it is you're doing. Let's use the tree planting example. If you have someone on the ground in Canada, can go there and interact and say, hey, this is really happening, this is what we're doing, generating positive PR. And I mean, that is, aside from the cornerstone basics that I spoke about, this is what I believe where the real impact happens. Because one, you know how it is in the industry. It's a small industry. It's like a big, it's kind of reminds me like a high school, you know, because like one, the cool brand does this, so now the next brand has to do it. And like but cool if it's for the best, if it's in a good, if it's with a good intention, I mean, more power to it, you know. I mean, I mean, AI aside, AI is there to help us be more efficient, save money, yes, but save on mundane tasks while the humans can remain creative, so we don't become all idiots, no, like, for lack of a better word. And then so you have that, but then I think the real excitement is in this era that we are in, and not just in the gambling industry, but as a world where we really care about the sustainable realities, whether it's business, whether it's building a house, whether it's gardening, whatever, shopping, people buying secondhand clothes over, what's that term, fast fashion, which I'm absolutely against as well. You know, so we're in that sustainability era. So like, first of all, it's just the right thing to do, so do it. Second of all, you can be more profitable, and that's really what companies care about. So it's a win-win-win for everyone.
Do you think moving forward that literally, see when like a new casino or a new affiliate or whatever opens and they've got like their checklist of things that are important to them in terms of getting their brand out there, they know they've got their branding, they've got SEO, they've got social media. Do you think actually moving forward ESG will just have its natural place within that and then not, you know, and be a natural conscious decision for people to think about when they're launching these new businesses within the iGaming space and in general, to be fair?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I mean, it will take time. I think there's a lot of, I mean, I don't think there would be a lot of resistance, but again, I'm obviously very biased. As anything, there's always resistance when it comes to change. That's just how we are as humans. That's human nature. Um, to quickly answer your question, yes, I think it will become. I think it will be quite a long road, but I can see the wheels turning. Just to compare how people reacted when I was introducing, it's kind of soft pitching the ESG, and this was before we even knew that we were going to be nonprofit. So because we didn't really know where we wanted to go with that, we're like, oh, should we be a B Corp? Should we be an NGO? So anyway, if I take it from there, just the tone of ESG from then compared to now, it's you see a growth for sure. And in terms of how that fits into the business, not the business landscape, but the business architecture of whatever company, of any given company, the business architecture of the overall company. ESG is not a marketing thing. It's overall. It should be above all. If ESG is relevant to operations, to commercial, to marketing, to all, to the customers, everything. So that needs to be basically integrated into a brand's DNA, and that can be done very easily for new brands because they're starting with a blank canvas. But then, as I gave the example before, also for a brand maybe that's existed for 30 years, they can take a step back and say, okay, these are our core values and we don't want to change those, but how can we adapt those to be more conscious of current issues and the change that the world is in? And again, as you said, it's not just our industry, it's all. I mean, more or less, you know, it's affecting everything. So ESG has a part in all dynamics of the business, you know, and it should be seen as that, and it just needs to be in their DNA, as you say, to be cheesy and use that expression.
That's the kind of stuff that I use, so it's don't
Yeah, another
worry
acronym.
about. I like that. Well, thank you so much, Brandie. I'm going to round it off with just one question I've asked every single one of our speakers. So there's quite a few like sort of new marketeers that kind of listen to the podcast. And what I just want to hear from you is if there's like one piece of advice that you would give to marketers within the iGaming space looking to future proof their career or future proof their strategy that you maybe wish that you'd known at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I'll try to wrap it up because I have a few ideas. I mean, just to incorporate all that we talked about, and that's SEO, the sustainability aspect. I mean, I think it has to remain human first. I'm not dissing AI. I've been kind of vocal that I don't like it, but not for I don't not like it. It's just I don't like how it's used. So number one, all in one package, human first, AI for efficiency, number one. And from an SEO aspect, the AEO, it always sounds funny to say it, but the answer engine optimization, where you're paying attention to the schemas, to the FAQs, optimizing for voice search and zero clicks, because that's the reality we're in. So those two should go together, and they do go together, but you just have to be at it human first, and to complement those two approaches, you in my opinion, should include ESG factors, make it more ethical and sustainable. I think if you can create a nice, well-rounded package of human first content and authenticity, optimizing for the obvious, which is AEO, and lastly, at the core of the brand, incorporating the ethics and the sustainability, however that means to you.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much, Brandie. I really appreciate your time, and
Likewise.
it's been so good to speak to you. I actually feel it's funny because it's just like me just been agreeing with everything that you've said.
And that makes me happy because I respect you a lot. So that's great for me.